Dr. Victor Holloway was once a name that resonated within the scientific community. A prodigy in genetic engineering, he had been at the forefront of groundbreaking research. Colleagues admired him, students sought his mentorship, and institutions vied for his expertise. However, a single catastrophic mistake unraveled everything he had built. It had started with an experiment meant to push the boundaries of human evolution. Victor believed he could create a new form of life, one that possessed intelligence beyond comprehension, resilience beyond measure. But he was blinded by ambition. His experiment spiraled out of control, resulting in a horrific mutation. A creature, neither human nor beast, emerged from his laboratory. It was an abomination, a mockery of nature itself. Before Victor could contain it, the entity broke free, leaving chaos in its wake. The facility was shut down and Victor was held responsible. Stripped of his title, banished from the scientific world, and branded a madman, he disappeared from society. Humiliation festered within him, evolving into a deep-seated resentment. They had called him a failure, but he would prove them wrong. In exile, Victor relocated to an isolated village in the heart of rural America. There, he rebuilt his laboratory in the depths of an abandoned mansion. If the world rejected his vision, he would create something so powerful, so undeniable, that they would have no choice but to recognize his genius. Years passed, filled with countless failures. Every creation he produced withered and died, unable to withstand the strain of unnatural existence. Yet Victor persisted, driven by an obsession that consumed his every waking moment. He scoured ancient texts, desperate for a method he had not yet considered. Then, on a storm-ridden night, fate intervened. The rain pounded against the mansion's windows as Victor rummaged through the remnants of an old, forgotten library. His fingers brushed against a book unlike any he had ever seen. Bound in black leather, its cover bore no title, only strange symbols that seemed to writhe under his gaze. Intrigued, he took it to his lab and began to decipher its contents. The book spoke of forgotten sciences, rituals that blended the realms of biology and the arcane. It detailed a process, one that required more than just scientific knowledge. It demanded sacrifice. Skepticism warred with curiosity, but desperation won. Victor followed the instructions precisely, gathering materials, preparing the ritual, and invoking words that tasted foreign on his tongue. As he completed the final step, the air thickened, charged with an unnatural force. The lights flickered, shadows twisted unnaturally, and then, silence. For a moment, Victor thought he had failed once more. Then, from the darkness, something moved. He had done it. He had created life. But as the creature slowly lifted its gaze to meet his, Victor realized that this was not the triumph he had envisioned. This was something else entirely. Victor became obsessed with his creation. He marveled at its form, its resilience, its unnatural strength. He saw not a monster but a testament to his genius. It was proof that he had surpassed the limitations of ordinary science. He tended to it, fed it, studied it, and spoke to it as though it could understand him. In his eyes, this being was not an abomination, it was the future. But the creature was not the obedient marvel he believed it to be. At first, it remained confined to the laboratory, watching him with dark, intelligent eyes. It did not speak, but it listened. It learned. And then, it began to hunger for more than what Victor provided. The first disappearance in the village went unnoticed. A stray dog, a few missing livestock. But as the weeks passed, people started to vanish. Strange noises echoed in the night, guttural growls carried on the wind. Deep claw marks appeared on doors, and crimson-stained earth was found near the forest's edge. The villagers grew terrified. Whispers spread of a monstrous presence lurking in the shadows. Some claimed to have seen a towering figure with glowing eyes watching from the woods. Fear turned into suspicion, and soon, all signs pointed to the old mansion on the hill, the home of the reclusive Dr. Holloway. When confronted, Victor scoffed at their fears. He called them superstitious fools, unable to comprehend true science. He denied everything, dismissing the missing people as mere accidents, the strange marks as fabrications of paranoid minds. "You don't understand," he snapped at them. "You fear what you cannot comprehend. I am on the verge of something extraordinary." But deep down, doubt gnawed at him. He had never questioned what the creature did when he left it alone. He had never asked himself where it went when it disappeared into the night. Until now. The creature had learned one thing: Victor would protect it. With every disappearance, every mutilated corpse, Victor had turned a blind eye. He told himself he was in control, that he could guide the beast, tame it. But the truth was far darker. The creature knew no limits. It was no longer content with feeding on animals or the occasional wanderer, it had developed a taste for more. And it reveled in the fear it instilled in the villagers. Then one fateful night Victor saw it with his own eyes. He had ventured outside his mansion, drawn by distant screams. As he approached the edge of the village, he saw the carnage unfold before him. The creature stood amid the ruins of a home, its massive claws dripping with fresh blood. The lifeless bodies of an entire family lay strewn across the ground. Victor's breath hitched, his mind racing between horror and denial. But then the creature turned its head and looked at him, not with guilt, not with shame, but with understanding. It knew he would not stop it. Still, Victor convinced himself that he could reason with it, that it was merely acting on instinct. He told himself that with time he could teach it restraint. So he returned to his mansion, shutting his doors against the outside world. But the villagers had reached their limit. The following morning the town square was filled with fearful murmurs and torches. The villagers demanded justice. They had pieced together the truth, the claw marks, the missing people, the eerie glow of the mansion on the hill. It all led back to Dr. Holloway. They stormed his home, demanding he rid the village of the creature or face the consequences. But Victor refused. "You are all fools," he shouted. "You don't understand what I've created. This is the next step in evolution. I will not let you destroy my life's work." The villagers, now armed and enraged, warned him, either he destroyed the monster, or they would burn down his mansion and kill it themselves. Victor's eyes darkened. "If you dare lay a hand on it, you will regret it," he growled. His voice was laced with venom, his patience finally breaking. "Leave now before you make a mistake you cannot undo." But the villagers would not be swayed. And as they turned away, preparing for war, Victor knew that the end was near. And he would not let them take his creation away from him. Victor knew that the villagers would not stop. No matter how much he threatened them, no matter how much he tried to convince them of his genius, their fear outweighed their reason. If he did not act soon, they would take matters into their own hands. He devised a plan. If the villagers refused to understand, then the scientific world would. He would take his creation to a grand scientific conference in New York, where some of the greatest minds gathered. There he would unveil his masterpiece, prove his brilliance and silence his critics once and for all. Unbeknownst to Victor, the villagers had already gone beyond mere protests. They had reached out to the government, detailing the strange disappearances and the horrifying creature that lurked in the mansion. At first, the authorities were skeptical, until they received evidence. Grainy photos of an inhuman figure prowling the woods, audio recordings of unnatural growls, and testimonies of those who had lost loved ones. This was no mere superstition. This was a threat. A secret operation was set in motion. Elite special forces armed with the most advanced weaponry were assembled. Their mission: eliminate the creature and capture Dr. Victor Holloway. The night of the conference arrived. The grand hall was filled with scientists, reporters, and scholars, all eager to witness Victor's long-awaited return to the scientific world. The air buzzed with curiosity and skepticism. Victor stood on stage, his heart pounding with exhilaration. He had brought his creation in a heavily reinforced cage, hidden behind a curtain. The creature had been docile all day, its glowing eyes watching him with an eerie intelligence. "This," Victor declared, his voice ringing with triumph, "is the pinnacle of human achievement. A being beyond evolution, beyond anything you have ever witnessed." He pulled the curtain aside, revealing the cage. A collective gasp echoed through the hall as the audience beheld the monstrous figure within. The creature's form was grotesque yet strangely mesmerizing. Its elongated limbs, its sinewy muscles, its jet-black eyes that seemed to pierce through one's soul. For a moment there was silence. Then murmurs of astonishment and horror spread through the crowd. Victor raised his hands, commanding attention. "You fear it because you do not understand it? But I tell you, this is the future. This being is superior in every way: strength, intelligence, adaptability. We stand on the precipice of a new era." But then something went wrong. The creature, which had remained still all this time, suddenly tensed. Its breathing became ragged, its body shuddered. Then with an ear-splitting screech it lashed out. The reinforced steel of its cage bent like paper as it tore through the bars with monstrous strength. Panic erupted. Scientists screamed and ran. Security guards rushed forward, guns drawn. But it was too late. The creature had already leaped into the crowd, its claws raking through flesh. Blood sprayed across the pristine white floors. Cries of agony filled the air. Victor stood frozen, horror dawning upon him. "No, stop. Stop," he shouted, but the creature did not listen. It never had. He had fooled himself into thinking he could control it. Then the doors to the hall burst open. The special forces had arrived. Armed with high-powered rifles, flamethrowers, and sonic disruptors, they moved in precise formations. Bullets tore through the air, striking the creature, but it barely flinched. It turned its glowing eyes upon them, then lunged. The battle was unlike anything Victor had ever witnessed. The soldiers were highly trained, their weapons devastating, but the creature was relentless. It moved with terrifying speed, its claws slicing through armor, its strength overwhelming even the most disciplined fighters. Grenades detonated, sending shockwaves through the hall. Fire erupted as flamethrowers engulfed the creature in blazing infernos, yet it roared defiantly, charging through the flames. Its body healed unnaturally fast, its rage fueling its monstrous resilience. Victor fell to his knees, watching in horror. This was his doing. He had created this nightmare. He had unleashed something he could never control. As the battle raged on, the government had a contingency plan. A last resort. "Deploy the pulse cannon," came the command over the comms. A massive device was wheeled into the hall, a prototype energy weapon designed for extreme threats. With a deafening hum, it charged up, releasing a concentrated energy blast. The creature shrieked as the blast struck, its body convulsing violently. Flesh burned away, its form deteriorating under the sheer force of the energy. It let out one final, blood-curdling wail before collapsing, its body reduced to a smoldering husk. The battle was over. Victor sat motionless, his world crumbling. He had spent years chasing this dream, this obsession. And now all that remained was ruin and death. The soldiers closed in on him. "Dr. Victor Holloway," one of them said, his voice devoid of sympathy, "you are under arrest for crimes against humanity." Victor did not resist. He did not speak. He merely lowered his head, consumed by the bitter realization that he had not been a genius. He had been a fool. And now he would pay the price. Victor Holloway sat in a cold, dimly lit interrogation room. His hands were shackled, his once proud face now hollow and aged beyond his years. He had lost everything, his career, his reputation, his freedom. But more than that, he had lost the belief that he was right. Across from him sat a government official, watching him with an unreadable expression. "You had the chance to stop this," the official said. "And yet you chose to protect it." Victor sighed. "I thought I was creating something extraordinary. Something that would change the world." The official leaned forward. "And instead you unleashed a monster." Victor closed his eyes. He had convinced himself that his creation was a breakthrough. He had ignored every sign, every warning. And now dozens were dead because of his arrogance. "We will study the remains of your creature," the official continued. "Whatever knowledge can be salvaged will be used to ensure nothing like this ever happens again." Victor nodded numbly. It was out of his hands now. Weeks later, he was sentenced to life in a maximum security prison. No more experiments, no more ambitions. Just an eternity of regret. As he sat alone in his cell, he realized that the true monster had never been his creation. It had been him all along. This story is purely a work of fiction, created from imagination. Any resemblance to real people, places, or events is purely coincidental.